Okay, now starting up on the Yak-38. Cockpit pretty much non-existent. Seat needed a bit of rework, so that's had something done to it. Dressed up a little bit. Side consoles put in place. Seat sanded down. Representation of an instrument panel popped in just to fill that space and show that there is something there. I might have to repaint it in the key color. Nose weight packed in around the lift engines. That was the usual air rifle pellets squashed up, held in place with super glue, then all secured up with milliput. I say, Cockpit just needed some kind of filling and padding out a bit. Well, the engine's in there though, that is completely invisible, and there's no intake trunking or anything else like that, so why on earth that is, I do not know, but it's there. That adds something to the rigidity of it, but minimum contribution. Anyway, it's there. So after putting the control column, and it seems to go together reasonably well. Normally my fiddling about with interiors seems to create fit issues, but this time it's not too bad. Drop tanks assembled just because I suppose I could. It's like to get something like that going sooner rather than later. It'll be cleaned up, and I can't see that creating any problem. No major fit issues. Interesting to note just how different shape-wise it is from the hobby craft or hobby boss hobby master one, which yeah, okay. And the canopy on this looks like it could be for two-seater side-by-side seating. Definitely some width and dimensional issues with this, and a shed load of detail issues as well, but it's what I'd built, it's the kit I had, and it's what I built, so you know, it'll sit alongside that, and it's just interesting to see the sheer differences between the two. I think this is closer to the true shape. I seem to be reasonably happy with it. The cleanup shouldn't be too bad for the panel lines, the progressive gluing and all the rest of it, so nothing too dramatic. It's meant to be a Mojo recovery build, so I think it's proving to be exactly that. So, progress with the Yak-25. Sorry, Yak-38. I have had done a lot of work on the filling and sanding along the fit of the vertical stabilizer. That was really, really appalling. There's filler in here, there's shim strip in here. I've used as many different filling methods. I've oversanded, I've obliterated detail. I think in all my builds, this was probably the worst fitting vertical fin. It's warped, so it's not quite straight. Its conformance to the line of the fuselage was simply non-existent. And it just took a silly amount of work. The rest of the kit is to be what's to be expected. I'm not overly enamored or disappointed of it. Yeah, you got work on the seams down the sides. That's okay. Proportionally, it looks not too bad. I've sliced off the wing so I can build these folded up. It's not got a big wingspan anyway, and with the wings folded up, it's going to be even smaller. This is the previous one I've built, and you can sort of see the differences from the efforts of two kit manufacturers. I'm pretty convinced that this one is the better representation, whereas this effort from Hobbymaster is, well, to be quite frankly, an absolute fucking pig's ear. Their profile, I don't normally criticize models for their accuracy and profile, but you sort of realize Hobbymaster made theirs way too wide for what it is. You just think the same aircraft, they're looking so fundamentally different in terms of the dimensions and the appearance. Yeah, it's recognizable as Yak-38, but what the happened here? Even some of the placement of key elements I'm like baffled by, but anyway, Yak-38 coming along. And even this one, when I look at the reference pics, I'm not entirely sure, and I got a horrible feeling that I've put these to vertical. I was going to have to check my reference pics for where these go, because the whole locations for them were not in the best of place, but I might have to take them off where they are and refit them and actually put them forwarder here. Yeah. That said, it's coming along reasonably well. It's moving a lot quicker than the Kamov KA226, and I'm reasonably happy with it. I've drilled some holes just to create some sense of detail for the wing root end. Well, I'll dress that up a little bit more, but not by too much. Yeah, it's a reasonable one to recover the mojo on. Nothing too silly or complex. I'm reasonably happy with it. It'll be built, parked up, intake, exhaust, and all the other possible covers that I can put on it will be put on it. Right, bit of an update here. Moving along quite well with the Yak-38. I've got the two main colours on, the blue upper surface and the dark green lower surface. I've hit it with Johnson's Klear. Drilled out along the wings. They've got a couple of pin locations as well for the have the wings folded. I've used Tamiya primer on it. Not something I normally do, but I've been having a go with this stuff to see how I get on with it. It's certainly an acquired taste and a very acquired smell. I need to sand this back a little because the Johnson Klear has blobbed a bit, but not too badly. So I've got the surface down to a level where in a couple of places I need to just take out things like that, which I do with with fine, all my fine polishing sanding mediums. It'll get a coat of matte afterwards anyway, so reasonably happy with this. It is proving, yeah, it's definitely a recovery build after the Camo KA225. Moving along quicker. I'm going to put some dummy auxiliary intake covers on, because this thing should have a line of intake of auxiliary intakes around here, which it's completely missing. So we'll see how that goes. The two drop tanks, which are going to be the only thing dangling off it, are painted, and the wing panel, outer panels that are folded up, are done. I need to identify the colours to use around there, and and the undercarriage is underway, so fairly typical level of progress on this thing. Nothing too... I'm happy that it's going at a reasonable rate. Haven't done the video yet for the 226. I've got to get myself back into video editing mode, so you may end up having 2 build vids and coming out in fairly quick succession than my end of year vid. But anyway, this is where we're up to on here. Just a little update. Oh, we're moving into final phases of this build. The main painting is done. It's been very much a layered affair. Applied a lot of weathering powders to adjust the tone, which I was happy with. Did that on a base of Johnson's Klear, and then sealed everything in, including the decals, with Tamiya matte varnish, and that seemed to have really tied. The goal of that is just to tie everything down and take shine and gloss off it. So happy with that. The decals are okay, they stayed together, so they weren't bad as in coming apart, but the flag is way oversized. The red stars, I lost one of them on the tail, so I had to pull a pair from the stash, and invariably I got plenty of red stars, so that is a bit oversized. That's more my own doing. This intake warning marking is fundamentally wrong, but it's what was in the kit. And this warning here is also way oversized, crap text and everything else, but I used the kit decals, I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't have an equivalent in my stash, and I didn't have a smaller Russian Navy flag marking in the stash either, so I used, you know, what was there. I didn't have an appropriate yellow V, and I didn't fancy doing that by painting, so again I've used what was in the stash. I'm putting on intake covers. I used some of the Dialectric tape to make the auxiliary intake cover, which is that red strip there, but bearing in mind the model doesn't actually show the auxiliary intake, so this, as much as anything, is to hide what should be there, the fact that it isn't there. So that's, and if you see on some of these aircraft, there is a red auxiliary intake piece, intake cover on aircraft. I'm making the intake doors. I've got to paint over, put little drops of red paint on these end intakes here, on auxiliary intakes here, or engine cooling intakes here, and here. And I'll have to probably, to make the exhaust intakes, I'll probably get a little bit of milliput, fill the cover in, and then just paint cap that off in red. Probably should have done that earlier, but fair enough. Then once all that's done, then I'll attach the aerials and bend up a few bits of wire so I can mount the wings in their folded position, which I must admit is going to give this aircraft probably the smallest, at least, width footprint of any of my models. Very small indeed, which is quite nice. I like that. For an aircraft with a very small footprint, it's going to be, you know, even with the wings unfolded, it's going to be even smaller. And I've got the pair of drop tanks ready to go on as well. It's just my personal thing. I like drop tanks on models. Maybe a bit tempted to put the surface to the air-to-air missiles, but I don't think I will do it. It just seems appropriate for this aircraft to have that particular config. So that's where we are. The model has way too many glaring inaccuracies with it for me to be entirely happy, and frankly I do think if you do get this kit and you can work around the inaccuracies, I would suggest buying some aftermarket decals for it, very much so, because these are pants, frankly, for what they are, for what they're aiming to represent. They're just pants. On the flip side, they did stay together, so we weren't enduring the problem of disintegrating decals, but they also lack opaqueness. It's in that sense, if you're going to fade something back, it's useful because the flag, the Russian Navy flag marking has blended in quite nicely and faded back, but that is because it does lack opaqueness. And in this sense, it works to its advantage. But that said, it's not what it should be by any stretch of the imagination. So anyway, this is where we are. And it's fun. It's a nice little build. It's just coming together, I think, as it should, to give me a reasonable representation of the type. I don't think representation of the type. Representation is what you got to accept. So here we are, the finished Yak-38. Well, I had fun with this one, and yeah, it was a good way to recover my mojo. I'm happy with it as for that purpose. Not a good kit, let's be honest about it. Fit and accuracy issues galore, but still for me, mojo recovery. Kept the loading pretty light, just to drop tanks, not that it could carry that much else in reality. Decided to go for full covering of intake covers, flags, tags, the works, just to keep it, well, interesting, and because I like to build aircraft in that config as well. So reasonably happy with it. I enjoyed a little bit of conversion work with the wings. Yes, the folds haven't worked out quite the same as each other, but they're not too far off. I'm happier with it than the previous one, despite the kit issues. And it looks like what it's supposed to be. Also, the covers, particularly those here, help make up for the fact that those auxiliary intakes are actually missing on the model. So I think if you are going to build this kit, it is worthwhile building like that, or scribing in the auxiliaries and go through it. If I was approaching this from a fresher perspective, I would buy a complete new set of decals for it. I wouldn't go with the kit ones, because there's too many issues. The Russian Navy flag on the side strikes me as way too big. The air intake warning markings are incorrect. They should be like a yellow stripe. There's just too much going on, and this blooming big yellow stripe on the side, that should be in Cyrillic text and be smaller. But I think the kit decals held together, but there's just too much that's wrong with them, and I suggest if you do get the kit, go online and find a set of alternative Yak-38 decals. The wing cut is pretty easy to do on this, but do look at reference photos. I don't think I got the hinging entirely right, but the position is near enough there. So yeah, it is what it's meant to be. I like doing some of these parked up configs, and yeah, I'd say I had fun with this. So I don't think Kangnam are around anymore, manufacturing kits anymore. So if you're going to find this kit online, to be honest with you, I think you're better off if you can find the A model one or the Revell one. Go for it. And if you really want to build it, I'd get the Hobby Boss 148 kit. I wouldn't, if you got options and you don't mind building 148, I'd build that to, far above anything else. But that said, for what it is, it's a Yak-38, and I'm reasonably happy with it. So there we have it. Kangnam Yak-38, built in a stored up condition. A few other things as I ran into the final phase. I applied a lot of Tamiya weathering powders to this. They've adjusted the tone reasonably well. Yeah, I like using them. I could have faded it back a lot further when you see an aircraft in heavy storage, but it tended to be more just like in operational on the deck. So the idea was to try and build it in like a parked up flight deck config as I've seen. Yeah, a nice bit of fun. And my last build for 2020, which brings me, it brought me to 18 kits completed this year, which I'm perfectly happy with. You know, a normal goal is 12 kits. 18 kits brings me to a mean build rate of 1.5 kits per month, which for me is good going. And I do include within kits the fact that I did a double build with the 0 and the P40. So there we have it, Kangnam 1/72 scale Yak-38. I'm calling this one